everyone. Welcome to Beautiful World with Kathryn Nelson. I'm coming to you today from Bundjalung country here in Australia. It is a beautiful day. It is sunny out. There's a little bit of a cloud coming through, but other than that, it is a beautiful day here. Today on the podcast, we have Senator Pete Whish-Wilson. He is an Australian politician who has been a senator for Tasmania since 2012, representing the Australian Greens. He campaigned to end Japanese commercial whaling in the Great Southern Ocean, battled the federal government as they tried to open millions of hectares of ocean acreage for drilling gas. He's fought seismic blasting in the greatest whale migratory paths, kept sharks protected despite nationwide calls to call, tackled invasive species, ran 2 different federal campaigns to stop industrial super trawlers from plundering our marine wildlife. I mean, this man is a real-life superhero. Also known as the surfing senator, let's hear what he's up to in his last few weeks in the Australian Senate. Welcome, Pete.
Hello, Kathryn. Thanks for having me on. Crikey.
Thanks for coming on.
That's quite the introduction.
Well, you're incredible. You really are. You are protecting our planet in Parliament, and we are so grateful. So thank you for all that you've done.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's a pleasure to have you.
It's been such a pleasure and a privilege to do it, Kathryn, especially working with people like you. It literally has been what's got me out of bed in the morning over the years when times have got tough. Getting up knowing there's other good people out there doing great things. Everyone doing things in their own way. Yeah, there's one thing I learned in this job is there's plenty of people out there that are trying to empty your glass, but you'll always meet people like you who help you fill it. And that's really, that sense of camaraderie and I suppose just people that have got similar, who've got that fire in the belly to do something that's going to help the planet and help their community. And I'm never short of inspiration with the amount of people that I've met that are doing wonderful things.
You inspire so many of us. And, you're, 15 years in the Australian Senate, and you wrap up next week or in 2 weeks?
2 weeks, actually. Wow. 2 weeks to today. Yeah, so
my God.
2 weeks today, I'll be Citizen Whish-Wilson and unemployed. So wow. Yeah, it's bizarre feeling after 21 years in politics. 14, just over 14 years in the Senate. But my journey started 21 years ago to kind of, I suppose, I joined a political party that started over 50 years ago. Actually, 54 years ago now, to put people into parliaments to change the world, because they figured, writing letters to newspapers and phoning into radio and protesting and having conversations only got them so far, and they really needed to sort of get into the parliaments of the world to protect our wild places and nature and communities. So, yeah. Well, it's been great to be part of that.
You have accomplished so much in your career, and I'm so curious to hear all about it. I'd love to go through a few of the things that you're proud of and hear about what the final things that you're pushing for. I mean, you've got this extended producer responsibility bill. Can you tell us about that and how we can support it?
Yeah, absolutely. I know we chatted a while back, Kathryn. I was looking for that photo of us when we first met at Byron Bay. That's Splendor in the Grass. When you were covered in plastic bottle lids. And I'm like, who is this woman? Like this? Yeah.
Made out of recycled plastic bottle caps. Yeah, that's such a good one.
You certainly made a statement. And I've got this really happy photo of us two together. And I was covered in this, like Donald Trump, in this bronze zinc, because I, being Tasmanian and standing out in the sun all day was just like something different for me.
Safe though.
Interesting on plastics. I was on the board of Surfrider Foundation before I went into Parliament, and I set up that marine conservation group here in Tassie, in the north of Tassie, to stop a big pulp mill from polluting the ocean. But once we got our group up and running, we started working with all these amazing people that were doing work on plastics and plastics in the ocean. And Surfrider actually, I think, might have had the first global campaign. It was called Rise Above Plastics. It was 2006, so 20 years ago now. Surfers kind of said, right, well, of course, we're cleaning beaches and we're finding this plastic everywhere, especially plastic bottles. So I started understanding the issue. I was also teaching economics at uni at the time, and I set up an environmental economics course at the University of Tasmania. And I was looking at how how do you make producers responsible? Like what kind of, because it's an economic problem, right? Like you're creating something that can't be recycled, essentially, or either because it's too expensive or, we don't have the sort of manufacturing chemical processes to do that. It's really dumb to be producing stuff that we don't have an end of life plan for. But this idea of like having producers play a role, have consumers play a role, and governments play a role was really obvious in the container deposit scheme, right? A bottle refund scheme. So when I started in 2012, I was just left Surf Rider, going to Parliament. South Australia had a scheme and Northern Territory was just getting one up. And we're like, well, why don't we have these all around the country, right? Where you put a value on something, say 10, 20 cents for a plastic bottle, because it's got a value on it, it's no longer trash or rubbish. It's, it then can stay in the system. We have the circular economy approach where it gets recycled or reused and everyone plays a role. So we obviously fought for years to get that up and running, and now we've got them all around the country. It's great. I really wondered at times whether we would ever see that. I generally thought you may remember we had some really big campaigns with Greenpeace and whole groups, dead birds falling out of the sky with beautiful people drinking Coke on the beach, and like, oh, why is that bird dead? Because it's full of plastic, and all the TV stations pulled the commercials because Coke complained, and we really got into it, but it really started sending the message that the most single biggest item we find on beaches is plastic bottles. So that idea that you can have a government legislative scheme that everyone is involved with needs to go beyond bottles and cans and cartons. So we started looking at batteries, solar panels, other forms of waste. And of course, the biggest one is packaging.
Yep.
Right? Everything's packaged mostly in plastic these days.
Oh, yeah. And we banned the plastic bags at the supermarket checkout, but then the rest of the supermarket shelves filled with plastic packaging. So the plastic companies are smart.
Plastic, right? Yeah, they are HDPE and all these other kind of plastics. And obviously some of those can be recycled. They're quite valuable in terms of their recycling capability. But the industry had all these kind of, were whispering sweet nothings in our ear. We're going to have these voluntary targets where, we're going to 50% of all our packaging in this country is going to be made from recycled product, and they're going to reduce everything, 100% of it's going to be recyclable or compostable by 2025 and all these targets. Of course, they never met it because they're voluntary and they didn't give a shit.
They can make all these claims, right? They can say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And everyone's like, well done, but no one's enforcing it or regulating them. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the thing, Kate. This is why I'm so pleased to be talking to you, because back in 2020 it was really obvious after 15, 20 years of failed schemes where big producers of plastic and retailers were saying they were going to do some stuff and never did. The Greens brought in a bill to the Senate, a private member's bill, to make producers and retailers responsible and to mandate national targets, right? No voluntary targets. These targets are in law. If you don't meet them, there'll be consequences.
Yeah.
And you played a really important role in promoting that bill. And we had such a big campaign around it. We had the numbers to pass the bill in the Senate, and Pauline Hanson backflipped at the last minute. So we had it drawn.
Pauline, now you guys listen. She doesn't do what she says she's going to do. We can't trust her. Don't trust this woman.
No, you can't. You definitely can't on the environment or just about anything else. Maybe if Gina Reinhardt had told her to do it, she would have done it. But, I think at the end of the day, that was really disappointing because we had a drawn vote in the Senate, and then the president cast their vote for the government, and we lost that. By one vote, we lost that. So that was 5 years ago. And of course, everything we said has come to pass.
Yeah.
We're now 2026. The industry's come nowhere near meeting any of their voluntary targets. Again, complete failure.
Yeah.
Like if 100% of plastics were going to be recyclable or compostable, it's about 14% in the country at the moment.
You can't trust the corporations either. You can't trust the industry.
No.
Gotta be law.
Failure. So here we are again, 2026, and this is really important for me. My last day in the Senate is going to be not next Thursday, but the following Thursday, and I'm bringing on another bill for debate. So 6 years later, slightly different, but we're having the same fight. We probably won't vote on it because we want to build the campaign. Because the Labor government came to power, now that with all that stuff that in 2020, Kate, when we were campaigning, was under the Liberal government. Now we've got Labor government in power, and they came to power saying they would actually legislate an extended producer responsibility scheme that made producers and retailers of plastic responsible, as well as us consumers and government. And they haven't done it. It's been 4 or 5 years. We had another big Senate inquiry into what's taking us so long. You know what? Everyone wants it now. This is what's changed in 6 years. Even the producers of plastic, and the retailers want a mandated scheme from the government. Now, they might have different views on even the producers, they might have different views on what that looks like.
Yeah.
But what the government does is say, okay, we're going to legislate these targets for 2030 or beyond. You must meet them, otherwise there'll be consequences. This is what the scheme will these are the regulations, but you go away and work out how you're going to achieve it. We're not going to prescribe to business how they do that. You're the experts, you do it. We know, by the way, there's 80 of these schemes around the world. They do work. We're not reinventing the wheel here.
Right.
It's just Australia, unfortunately, is really slow on the uptake. So the states have been going it alone on plastic bans, as you know, on container deposit schemes. So now they're going alone on batteries. But actually, the federal government is the one that needs to do this, because it's no good having different state-based schemes that are all different.
Yeah.
And industry doesn't want that. That's why industry is on board.
Okay.
They can see this is coming. And the last thing they want is 6 different schemes.
Yeah, too confusing. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Great. Oh, so congratulations. Finally, how exciting.
Well, it's probably going to happen after I'm gone. So after 20 years of campaigning on this, that's fine. I don't care. I just want it to happen.
That's all right.
I'll be, if I'm surfing, up in Northwest WA, or I'm looking after my aging mother and father, I won't care. It'll be good news to me whenever it happens.
That's right. No, we'll all celebrate. Yeah. It was such an honor and pleasure to work on that with you. And I'm just so grateful that you've kept pushing this forward. And you're right. I mean, at some point, industry is like, okay, we know this is going to happen. Actually, let's just make it easy and the same thing across all the states so that we can just have one policy or one program in place. So hopefully that comes in, and we can support that by waiting for that to get to like.
Yeah. So when the bill's brought on for debate, then we probably won't bring it to vote. So we can then build a campaign where people can get in touch with their senators and their local MPs to support either our bill or keep the conversation going to put pressure on the government. Like I said, the ducks are all lined up, and this is not a boast. It's to show you how much things have changed. But when I first talked about plastics in the ocean in 2012, we did a search of Hansard, which is the parliamentary transcript. No one had even talked about marine plastics in Australia prior to that. And actually wasn't a big issue back then. It was kind of on the periphery of policy as well. And things have changed radically, in public perception. We've had a global plastics treaty negotiation to highlight that every country's got to play a role. People like yourselves and others that have been raising awareness at community level, and NGOs doing great jobs. Yeah, so it's now apart from maybe climate change, the biggest pollution issue on the planet.
Oh gosh, it's huge. I remember when
bodies, it's everywhere.
Yeah, I remember when I first came to Australia in 2011, and I'd been working on a lot of plastic bag bans in California, Santa Barbara, and LA, and the statewide ban. And I ended up meeting with the Minister of the Environment because they were like, what? Like, what is the, and working with Boomerang Alliance and just kind of like talking about my experience working on those bag bans. And it was so exciting to be this new kind of this environmental activist and just excited about the cause. But then to be meeting with the federal Minister of the Environment to talk about the plastic bans and all this science that I'd been trying to amplify and uplift in the States to get some policy change, and to feel like, oh my gosh, Australia is interested. Like, we might actually be able to do something. And then 100 years later, it's like, it's still, and this is why I'm so grateful that you have been so committed and continue to show up. And the Greens Party is such a relentless advocate for the ocean and for the environment, because it is just so hard to, you pass a law, at the state level, or you ban plastic bags in some area, and then Coles and Woolworths put plastic bags everywhere else, package all the produce in plastic and package everything else in plastic. So they're still, supporting or working with their plastic manufacturers, the plastic bag industry or the plastic producers are still getting their product out into the stores. It's just not at the checkout. So I've learned so much in these policy change and trying to advocate and push things forward, because it's like, oh my gosh, you have to be ahead of the game and really look at things holistically in the big picture. So this bill that you're putting forward is going to really do that, and we're going to make sure it happens this time. So just let me know. Let's do it. Let's do it, everybody. Everyone.
Absolutely. Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got to happen.
Gotta happen.
It's crazy that Australia goes to these global plastic negotiation treaties as saying they're leading on this issue. They want to see a legally binding treaty between countries to reduce plastic and get it out of our lives, and yet we don't have that same legislation in Australia.
It's
don't
crazy.
Have the same thing in mind.
And when we're such an oceanic nation, like we are we're such a the Great Barrier Reef, and we've got all this like surfing and all this amazing tourism around the ocean, and yet and plastic is one of the biggest issues affecting the ocean. And like you said, it's in our bodies now, it's in humans, it's just everywhere. And to not be investing in legislation to prevent plastic pollution, which pollutes not only our oceans but our body. I mean, it just is so crazy to me.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
It is. And I remember, I think we had our first the world's first Senate inquiry into plastic pollution in the ocean. It was called Toxic Tide. It was 2014-15. We had a hearing in Sydney, Kathryn, and there was this Liberal senator who was a vet. So he's a scientist, I suppose, but he was, we'd had a few biffos with him over the years on things like live export and other stuff. And I figured he'd been put on the inquiry to make my life really difficult, because this sometimes happens in politics. Like, as in everything I say, he would kind of scrutinise the opposite. But interestingly enough, this guy, his name was Chris, he actually got it. We had this witness from, I can't remember the university in Sydney, and they'd just been doing research on Flathead in Sydney Harbour that had plastic in them. And I said to them, how much money are you getting to do your research? And they said, oh, gee, Senator, I think we scraped together a couple $100,000. I was thinking, gee, that's not a lot of money. This is when it was all starting. And this guy, Chris, he leaned over and whispered in my ear, she goes, shit, Peter. He said, this could be the next asbestos. If they're finding plastic in fish and we're eating those fish, this could be all through our body. And plastic accumulates toxins and dioxins and furans and all sorts of terrible stuff. And I think he actually really got it. And he actually supported the recommendations of the inquiry back then. So, it's been interesting to see how the conversation's evolved since then.
Have a vet on and then present all these fish and animals that are full of plastic, and he would understand the chemistry, like the bioaccumulation of a toxic chemical in the body. It's all in the ocean, absorbing all these different chemicals. I mean, that's so great. That's so great when the scientists, this is why I like climate change, one of the most studied thing. And all these 99.9% of all these scientists are like, wait, this is clearly happening. Can't you see it? It's out your window. Like the fires are right there now. It's like, same with plastic.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we've got to listen to them, right? Yeah. Like the science is under siege. We've talked about this before. Science is under siege globally.
Oh my gosh.
Especially given what Trump's doing in the US. It's next level. But the thing that I don't know if people really understand the connection between plastics and climate change. Yeah. But the oil and gas industry, the fossil fuel industry, we're seeing a lot of cars change to be, people are buying EVs now. We're electrifying our energy systems and from homes through to industrial. So the oil and gas industry see plastics as one of the biggest sources of future demand for their product. Yep. I think 50%, they reckon, of all future oil production is going to go into petrochemical production of plastic. So they don't want to see plastics reduced in our life, quite the opposite. And as you know, with climate change, they're ferocious campaigners for their profits.
And every time you check in with them, they're wanting to increase their production exponentially, like by 4 times. And this is when we're getting more and more science that, oh my gosh, plastic is in our brains. Oh my gosh, plastic is in testicles. Oh my gosh, plastic is in placentas. And yet the plastics companies are producing more and more and packaging more and more and putting plastic into food and into cosmetics and into all of these things. So taking action against plastics is so important. And I'm so excited to support this bill. One thing that you mentioned, I'd love to go into. So speaking about the things that you're fighting for in your final hours, I know that you ran a Senate inquiry into disinformation, and that this is one of one of the biggest threats to humanity, according to the World Economic Forum.
Yeah, two years in a row, the World Economic Forum. So 2024-25, they said the biggest short-term threat to humanity is disinformation, which is the deliberate spreading of lies and deceit in organised campaigns, often really well-funded, clearly climate change has been targeted by the fossil fuel industry and other interests now for years, but of course it extends into other things too. In fact, all elements of politics. And we're not just talking about hostile foreign state actors like Russia and China poisoning democracies. We're seeing it from commercial interests within our own democracies as well. And then we've got an internet that's largely unregulated, especially in the age of Trump. It's basically deregulated it. The tech platforms over in the US, and that flowed into other countries. It's just this cesspit of information pollution. Of course, unfortunately, most people are getting their information online now, and not through online news either, by the way, but through influencers like us, Kate and others, and with the kind of the algorithm rewarding rage baiting, kind of content hacking, basically the more fringe and more controversial the view, the better it goes on the algorithm. We're in a real strife. The whole world, the governments are struggling to legislate and communicate good policy to people. Everything's been questioned and undermined. And so the World Economic Forum said, if we don't get on top of this, we're kind of screwed.
Wow.
And then they said the biggest long-term threat to humanity is disinformation coupled with the physical impacts of climate change. Because that is, as we learned at the Clean Energy Conference in Noosa recently, the biggest threat to humanity. So a lot of people, including people listening to this podcast, won't know or haven't quite figured out, or we haven't raised enough education and awareness on this issue, that just how organised these campaigns are, and that when they go on their Facebook page or their Instagram, a lot of the comments are from fake accounts. They're synthetic. They're bots and trolls. You can buy bot and troll armies online now to prosecute your cases if you're a politician or a company or, an influencer or whatever. And of course, that is happening in politics.
And that's what happened with Trump. And that's what happened. That's what's happening with Pauline Hanson. It's this like false movement of support that people are like, oh my gosh, she's having more support. And it kind of builds this.
Yeah. Looks like they've got a grassroots movement behind them, a massive build of momentum. And I'm going to get on board with this. Everyone's talking about Pauline. Everyone's backing her in. And actually, Australia, but it's up to 70% of it's actually, they're not real. And yet people look at it and they don't know that, right? So the tech companies are supposed to take down what's called inauthentic behavior. They do take down some, but they're nowhere near enough. And they don't necessarily define bot and troll armies as inauthentic behavior. Like there's so much work we've got to do on regulating this. Not regulating free speech, because that's important, but getting transparency around the algorithm and how it works and what they're rewarding. Can you imagine if we had our tech platforms? It's so tricky, but can you imagine if we had an algorithm that rewarded science and people discussing facts?
Oh my gosh.
That everybody showed them, right?
Love that.
Oh, yeah, it might be boring, but it's really important.
No, we are creative too. We can make science fun again.
That's it. That's what we got to do.
I see a lot of it. I see a lot of really good stuff on the internet now too. Like, is it CSIRO has like Wombat Wednesday? I mean, it's like funny. There's like some good, funny science out there. But it doesn't get the clicks. It doesn't get the engagement. And you're right. I think it's so interesting because, I was really curious about the difference between disinformation and misinformation and, who's running these bot armies. Like, is it the fossil fuel companies and they're like, who's funding this? Like what for what?
Yeah. So fossil fuel companies, like a lot of companies, have got to be careful what they put out under their own name because we have greenwashing laws that will prevent them from basically lying about their products. So what they do is they put billions of dollars into a whole bunch of different organizations. We call it the denial machine, and it's been mapped quite, especially in the US. I think a professor at ANU who presented to our committee said about $3.4 billion in the last decade has gone into PR firms, consultancies and marketing companies, as well as think tanks. And these think tanks, will then seed their ideas into universities and get academics online. Then it goes into compliant media, usually News Corp, by the way, Murdoch Press, who are, some of the biggest serial misinformers on the planet, especially on climate change. And so you have this toxic brew of money that's flowed into all these organizations, often fake community groups too. We call them astroturfing groups. So once again, like bots and trolls, they might have an Instagram account that's pumping out a heap of content attacking, net zero or, plastic regulation or whatever. And you think it's a community group, and they've got names. They've got these really cool names like, mermaids for dolphins or something.
Yeah.
And yet they're undermining our cause.
Yeah.
So they're often setting up these fake groups to make it look like their grassroots movement.
Well, that's like when I was.
But they're all fake as well.
Yeah, that's like when I was working on the bag ban, and then there was this organization that was out the front of supermarkets, because a lot of the campaigning, we would be out front of the supermarkets getting signatures to ban single-use plastic bags at supermarkets. And so there was this company that was out the front of supermarkets getting more signatures, and their organization was called Bag the Ban. So they were actually against the ban, but it was also confusing, and no one read the fine print, and they were just like, sign this. They've been doing this for decades. Like, this is classic.
That's the thing. They've been doing it for decades, and they're really good at what they do, and they've got all the money in the world. They've got trillions of dollars that they're trying to protect. So investing a few $1 billion to confuse the information environment and delay climate action is a really good investment for them, right? And actually what we call the work they've done, it used to be good old-fashioned climate denial, right?
Yeah.
As in Pauline Hanson, Malcolm Roberts, flat Earth, this total nutter, climate change is not real.
The Earth has been doing this forever. Yeah. It just does cycles.
That's it. There's still a little bit of that, mostly in One Nation. But mostly they've been they got really sophisticated in the last decade, and they've produced through the use of these, working with PR companies and psychologists and a whole bunch of different people. They've come up with what's called the discourses of delay. And there's about 12 or 13 main ones. And I can guarantee anyone watching this podcast, when you news on coral bleaching in the ocean, or, record typhoon that's the strongest ever seen, or wildfires in Europe now or in Australia in the years ahead, or even the algal bloom, you're going to see all these things appear. Yeah. And you might think they're real people. They're probably bots and trolls, but the discourses of delay are really obvious to spot. And one of them is like, whataboutism. Like, there's no point in Australia acting because, China and all these other countries. You'll know them when you see them. And sometimes they've just got the smallest grain of truth in them. And which is enough to kind of maybe make people stop and think. But they're really clever. And the latest one's doomism. I've tried so hard, and I'm tired, and I'm frustrated, and I have to have a break. We're not going to win this fight. Because when people give up, we're in trouble, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't have that pathway to get change, especially a political pathway. We need people to stay active and positive and hopeful that we can change things. They've actually turned that on us too. So sometimes I feel like, oh yeah, man, I know how you feel. This is really tough. But then I go, it's probably bullshit. This is someone literally on there that's a book, and you look at them and they've got 4 followers, zero posts. Oh, I've been fighting on this for 20 years. I give up. It's next level. They are using psychology and really intelligent people. They're paying them a lot of money to come up with these discourses that delay, just to slow down. Some of it's around the pricing of clean energy versus fossil fuels. It's a whole bunch of stuff in there. You'll know it when you see it. All visual.
I know you'd mentioned that there's like an online harms act in the UK. Like, what is some of the policy around the world on this stuff, or what can we do?
Yeah, there's an online harms act in the UK. There's a Digital Services Act in the EU that's probably the most cutting edge.
Okay.
That requires tech platforms to do things like fact checking, which they've pretty much stopped doing in the age of Trump. That it requires them to disclose their algorithm and provide feedback and information on a whole bunch of different kind of online harms, including disinformation and misinformation. And look, we have some regulation in Australia, but mostly it's voluntary. And inauthentic behaviour, like these bots and troll armies, they're supposed to take them down. Now, to be fair to Meta and others, in the age of AI, we have industrial disinformation.
Yeah.
Right. You can produce this stuff endlessly. And the deep fakes are so compelling and hard to spot. So the companies, these tech platforms are up against it. But, politically speaking, though, in the US, they don't want to touch any of this stuff because of Trump.
We need
so it's really hard.
We need bot armies for good. Like, don't we need like bot armies to just like get behind the Greens party and like just come on?
Well, I think Yeah. Okay. So it's a good question. I think right now the aim is to just raise the level of understanding on this and just we're trying to force disclosure, trying to shine a light on it because so many people don't fully understand what's going on. I
Yeah.
think the best thing we can do is invest in independent journalism
Yeah.
because that's also at the same time we've seen the rise of, the influencer and the rage baiting and all the,
Yeah.
the cancel culture and all the kind of nasty stuff that goes on the internet. We've seen a significant decline in mainstream media.
Yep. Yep.
So
Okay. So
it's
don't
a lot of
join
independent
them.
journalists.
We're not going to join them with the bot armies. We're going to just stick to integrity and just.
I think we need to call them out.
Yeah.
Like I did with Pauline Hanson in the Senate recently, and
Mm.
I got interestingly, I got majorly attacked about my masculinity, which is another
I
thing
saw
altogether.
that. Yeah.
It's an interesting side point, but a really important one on plastics too, because, and as I pointed out at this conference in Sydney in the last 2 days, they're not just attacking renewable energy development, for example, with disinformation. The biggest strategy is to radicalize people online, especially men and young men, on issues that might affect them personally, like they're giving the whole kind of toxic masculinity thing, the manosphere, bringing them in. You're part of my tribe. You're safe with us. You've got an identity with us. They kind of radicalize them at that level, but then they radicalize them on immigration. They radicalize them on climate change, and they get their vote. And this is also funded by the fossil fuel industry, as we found out. There's a lot of evidence around these broader right-wing frames to try and radicalize people to get them to vote on against climate action, but they get them on something else, not directly on appealing to them, saying climate change is false. Well, you don't need to worry about this. Another discourse of delay is like, we've got this. Humans are great. We're innovative.
Yeah.
Don't panic, everyone.
Yeah.
Don't panic. This is not as serious as it appears.
Yeah.
We'll engineer our way out of this. We can to this. That's another discourse of delay. But people go, oh yeah, we are pretty good, aren't we? And all right, maybe I shouldn't be so worried.
It's kind of inconvenient to work on this anyway, so I'm just gonna keep along business as usual. Yeah. Okay. That's fascinating that they would fund, creating this whole manosphere, creating this whole culture, and then just to get them radicalized and then just like give them, hey, we don't believe in climate change and we're anti-immigration and we're, a few of these other things that are just convenient for their party's position.
I've seen it with friends of mine, Kathryn who used to campaigners who, and through some of my kids kind of their networks, where people got caught up in the whole COVID thing, like they went down kind of the rabbit hole of opposing vaccines, and that's another story altogether. But the point I'm making is that they have then become climate deniers, and these were people I campaigned on. To stop oil and gas drilling and stuff. They were climate campaigners, and now they think it's a UN scam.
Oh.
Right? They do. They think it's all authority, all institutions, all science is trying to manipulate them, and it's the kind of tinfoil hat stuff.
Yeah.
So
it was.
It's pretty concerning.
You're right. That was probably another angle that these billion-dollar funded think tanks were probably like, here we go. These people are not trusting science because of this thing. And so let's hammer home to them, the algorithm, direct them, hey, yeah, don't trust science, also climate science, bullshit. And now we have this huge group that doesn't believe that climate change is happening, even though Europe is on fire, Canada's on fire. Like our snow seasons, like there's no snow, it's like, what do you think is happening then? How do you explain this?
And then it extends beyond climate too into government policy on invasive pests.
Yeah.
Like one of the most toxic invasive pests around the country are Argentinian fire ants, which are around Brisbane and spreading around Queensland. And, it's not great, but we have to bait for them and do things to try and contain them, because if they go across the country, we're kind of stuffed. Not to mention the amount of money we'll have to spend on chemicals just to keep our agricultural industry going and these kind of things. And suddenly you get that same distrust about authorities who are trying to do a good thing by eradicating or containing fire ants. They're out to poison our property and kill our horses. And I kind of get some of it, but at the same time, They don't listen to the science, and they never will, because they don't. That's the word, is that trust has been lost.
Right.
The trust
Yeah.
is gone. So we've got to rebuild that trust, and it's very hard to do in this poisoned information environment we live in.
Yeah, that's a real challenge. How do you think we do it?
Well, we need to, that investigative and independent journalism is really important. We need to build trusted voices. I mean, the ABC, and there are some trusted information sources out there. And we need to do more of what you're doing. We need to get influencers out there that have got followers. We obviously need to build the presence of trusted voices, while there are a lot of people out there just rage baiting, deliberately peddling extreme views to get engagement and therefore monetize that and make money out of it. This is a sad thing. A lot of the people that we're fighting, Kate, aren't actually interested in the end outcome of what happens. It's all about engagement.
Yeah.
And getting a following going and making money. And
clickbait.
This is what the algorithm and tech companies and platforms reward. So that's something governments can change.
Everyone needs to engage with the scientists and the nonprofits and the environmental activists and the Greens parties, and, get engaged in these things in the algorithm and boost it, because it's really hard to speak the truth and speak about boring science that's not, hectic clickbait.
Just quickly though, another thing that we discovered in the disinformation inquiry is the big tech platforms had a policy that, because they pay content creators that are real, certain kinds of content creators, like Charlie Kirk, right? Everyone knows him. He was a highly paid content creator for Meta and other groups. When I had the CEO of Meta before the inquiry, not Zuckerberg, but their Southeast Asian CEO, I gave him an example in the US where the LA fires were happening, where Charlie Kirk was spreading disinformation and misinformation, whatever, whether he was behind it, I can't say, but he was certainly spreading it, including that these fires are started by space lasers, which is fascinating. Yeah. I'll go once again, distrust the government's behind this.
Yeah.
And that, according to Meta's policies, he wasn't allowed to do that, right? Like they have clear, and I read out their policy to this guy. And the reason they didn't change anything or hold him to account was because he had 5 million likes on that post or something like that. And guess who was advertising, right? Because the more better your engagement, the more advertisers want to pay a Meta to advertise. Starbucks was all over that post when you went on and had a look at it. It's Starbucks is paying to have get in front of people's eyeballs, while an influencer was talking about undermining climate as being a cause of the fires in LA. So there's things there that you can regulate. You can you can actually make the tech platforms hold them to account on their own policies, for example, to stop the spread of disinformation and misinformation. There's a lot we can do.
What are 5 examples of clear disinformation campaigns that we can be on the lookout for? Or, like wind farms kill birds, or renewables cost too much. What are some of the clear ones that we might see?
Yeah, certainly renewable energy. There's a couple. It's certainly around costs that, renewables are unreliable and they're expensive. That's been completely debunked. It's quite the opposite now.
Yeah.
Coal-fired power and fossil fuel power is unreliable, and everybody knows we actually need to get rid of the power stations that are burning coal because they are unreliable. Everyone understands that, but that's still a lie. That's frequently quoted. Renewables are now at wholesale level significantly cheaper than coal-fired power. In terms of, the transmission lines, wind farms cause fires, they cause disease, cancer. There's a lot of lies. Or they kill whales if they're in the ocean. That was Trump's big one that him and fossil fuel interests spread, that made their way to billboards and off Newcastle in East Coast Australia and Illawarra and other places. So there's things we can do around pre-bunking, so get in there early and debunk. The one that worries me the most is around extreme weather events. Okay. Like when we get fires like we are in Europe at the moment, that's when the bots and trolls and the disinformation campaigns kick in. And there were some situations in LA and in Australia.
So the fires in LA, they were spreading misinformation or disinformation about fake places to gather, was it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, for communities to gather to escape the fires and get information from authorities and those kind of things.
Wow.
Which of course could lead to very serious threats to life, and
Mm.
plus broader things around, climate change, or
Yeah.
blame, even blaming immigrants for it,
Oh
or
my gosh.
who knows?
Or
It's just, it's
blaming immigrants
endless.
for the housing crisis as well. I mean, that's a silly one.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
could we could pre-bunk
I've
here.
seen, oh, totally. Well, it's very, this is the thing about inequality, but when you look at the companies and the ideal, I mean, disinformation, it can be, the agendas behind it can be commercial.
Yeah.
So it could be a fossil fuel company wanting to spread lies about climate to slow down climate action. It could be ideological or political in nature. It can be religious. We've
Mm.
discovered or it could just be malicious state actors who are literally trying to sow chaos and amplify, problems. We saw that around the Bondi
Mm.
massacres last Christmas. Within hours, terrible fake posts using deep fake AI were just promoting chaos,
Yeah.
and lies, and including some of the victims, were being seen as being fakes. And I don't know. It's a pretty troubling world when you
Mm.
dive into this stuff. So there's all
What?
sorts of motivations, but yeah, there's some examples. So coral bleaching, you put up a post on. I did one on Ningaloo last year
Yeah.
after having been there with scientists. I think we're the first people to actually kind of go and talk about what happened at Ningaloo. And immediately, like within minutes, there were posts appearing, probably bots and trolls, around, and Chinese warships were seen off the coast dumping chemicals and nothing to do with climate change. Now,
Mm.
this is not, you have to be really wacky to make this stuff up, right? Like
Mm.
Malcolm Roberts kind of wacky. The likelihood is it's just fake,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. And then
There's trolls and bots spreading the stuff, and
what about some of these things that kind of seem or maybe initially were good and maybe aren't all that they were cracked up to be, like carbon offsets? That one is like, can you talk about
yeah,
that?
yeah. I can't talk about any kind of misinformation campaigns around that one specifically, but certainly carbon offsets are a big issue, about to get even bigger in the parliament in the weeks ahead. When we had what was called the safeguard mechanism, which the Labor government's key climate legislation, the whole concept of net zero, it's not zero emissions, it's net zero, because you can offset your emissions by like buying trees and planting them, or other technologies that reduce carbon in the atmosphere. But we know they're not effective, they don't work properly, and companies know this too. So what we've seen in recent years is fossil fuel companies getting new projects approved under the net zero banner, and then going out there and buying, dodgy offsets. Some of them work, and some of them don't.
Right.
But we know that it's not reducing our emissions. And now, I think there's pushes on to get forests protected, and then make those, like native forests or government-owned forests, and get them into the equation. And so fossil companies can go and approve a big project like the Browse project off WA. They can then go and invest in native forests.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
yeah, the thing is, we just supported it, and I have some regrets about that now.
Mm.
My party was in a really difficult position when the Labor government got in, because I've been there for the swamp and desert years of the LNP. We had no climate policy for 10 years. It was brutal.
Oof.
I saw 3 prime ministers toppled over climate policy. So when the Labor government got in and they legislated a emissions reduction target, that was nowhere near in line with what the science required, we
Mm.
kind of said, okay, we'll do this and we'll build on it, right? Sometimes
Mm.
you have to make those political decisions. And then when they brought in the safeguard mechanism that allowed companies to offset, once again, we thought, well, if we don't back this in, we have no climate legislation in Australia, like nothing. So we'll back it in and we'll improve it. But it's very hard in politics to find those opportunities to
Mm.
improve things. And that's kind of where we're at now. So there probably will be fake campaigns around carbon offsets. But what I can tell you, the fossil fuel industry are ramping up big time, is misinformation and disinformation around carbon capture and storage in the ocean. The idea that you can inject the carbon dioxide back into these underground reservoirs, like you can develop Browse. So Browse project's the one we're fighting to stop right
Yeah,
now.
let's
It's one
talk
of the
about it.
biggest
Yeah.
fossil fuel projects. Yeah, it's one of the biggest fossil fuel projects in our nation's history. It's off northwest WA. It's a couple of hundred k's off the coast of a place called Scott Reef, which is a beautiful oceanic ecosystem, precious, a number of critically endangered species, and all the different studied, organisms in marine life. It's a beautiful biodiverse part of the planet. So they're going to risk that anyway by seismic blasting there and drilling. They want to drill 50 wells. And of course, it's all about money to them, right? And they want to sell this gas overseas, and they're not paying hardly any royalties to the Australian people. But whole gas tax thing is part of this debate. Right. But they're going to say, okay, we can produce, if it's 1.6 billion tons of carbon they're going to produce out of this project. That's just scope 1 and 2. Scope 3, which is 80% of the emissions, they go, no, that's not a problem. Whoever buys it's got to deal with that. So when Korea buys it, they're going to deal with 80% of the emissions are going to be dealt with by the countries that buy our gas.
Oh, but what planet are they on? We're on the same planet.
Yeah, we're all on the same planet. So wherever you burn this fossil fuels, it's going to warm the planet and kill the ocean where they're drilling.
Wow.
This is what, as a marine conservation, as someone who cares about the ocean, it just does my head in that we're still exploring for the same stuff that when we burn it is destroying our reefs and the habitat that marine creatures rely on, our mangroves, our seagrasses, our giant kelp forests. They're all vanishing because we're burning fossil fuels. But anyway, to get back to the carbon capture and storage.
You're running.
They're basically saying that they can inject the carbon back into the ocean.
Okay.
And there's almost no proof that this works anywhere commercially at scale, anywhere in the world.
Just a huge lie.
That's what they're spinning. They're spinning that's bullshit. This unicorn technology that they're saying is going to allow them to produce fossil fuels, it is bullshit. And I've been trying to call them out on that, others. So.
And this is Woodside.
That's one we should be focused on.
Okay, great. That's good. Thank you for that. And this is Woodside. Woodside that is profited $6 billion since this war.
That's 1 quarter.
In 1 quarter. And they're just making money off of the oil. And they're let's drill more. Don't tax us. And we're going to continue. We're destroying the planet. Trust us. Let us profit more. And you lose everything. It's crazy.
That's right. And just to rub salt into the wounds, Kathryn, their line is at the moment that gas is powering the renewable transition.
What?
So they've come up with this twisted line that we need gas to get off coal. We need gas, which will therefore allow the renewable transition to occur. Because without that kind of intermediate gas filling the gap, we would just continue to develop more coal projects. So once again, they're spin doctors, probably psychologists, and all these people in think tanks and stuff have come up with this. We need gas to power the renewables transition, and that's Woodside's line. But they're just one of many fossil fuel companies trying to do the same thing. But the Browse is going to be a really big fight. We've just had 70,000 submissions from around the country within 3 weeks. Mind you, that the environment groups pulled together. Say to Murray Watt, do not approve Browse. The new science shows us that every mass coral bleaching event, 30 million new coral colonies will die if Browse gets approved. This science can now directly link these projects and their emissions profiles to the death of corals. So what's happening off the coast of WA is killing corals on the Barrier Reef, which employs 60,000 Australians and is the biggest natural wonder in the world that you can see from space. It is insane.
Why would they approve it?
Talking about this. Money.
For who?
It's all about dollars. It's all about dollars and power.
Because not us.
Well, the dollars. No, not for us. We suffer the consequences of it. I mean, look, they employ people, and company like Woodside pays income tax.
Yeah.
They can point to some things that they contribute. Look, at the end of the day, it's not made up. It's not balanced out by the damage they're doing to our environment, and the fact they're not paying royalties for our resources for these inputs into their productions.
Right.
Which they should be.
Yeah.
But, I even worry about talking too much about that because I just don't want them to be producing this stuff anymore.
Right, okay.
I've been on the front line, Kathryn, and I've spent the last couple of years of my career just bearing witness to the sad decline in the natural world, and it's heartbreaking.
It is.
It really gets you in the gut,
That's an interesting point about the gas tax that...
nothing anyone can say to me anymore.
That's an interesting point about the gas tax that it's kind of like a lot of these myths in plastic, let's invest in more recycling of plastic. Well, it's we don't actually want production of plastic. So let's back up upstream further and try and target the production of plastic instead of focusing on the recycling. It's okay, sure, we do need to tax gas exports. And yes, let's tax them higher than maybe they would want. But why are we focusing on that? Why don't we focus on just, yeah, like you said, not letting Woodside drill at all at Scott Reef, where it's this incredible marine ecosystem? It's like, stop these drilling projects, stop the extraction of fossil fuels, because that's what we need to see worldwide for the climate crisis.
Correct.
That's what we need. We want to tax it, but like, don't drill in the first place.
Yeah, don't drill in the first place, and be careful. Let's be careful not to normalize new fossil fuel developments, because they might help pay for schools and hospitals. Obviously, if they go ahead, they should be paying for schools and hospitals. But at the end of the day, the more important thing is that they don't go ahead in the first place. You know, you mentioned it just then, but the science is really clear. We've just passed 1.5 degrees warming now, which is the Paris target. At 2 degrees warming, which I think some scientists are saying we might hit within 15 years. In fact, they're saying this summer with a super El Nino will be what it will be like at 2 degrees in the future. For your son and my kids, Kathryn, it'll get worse. And so at 2 degrees, the science, IPCC science tells us we'll lose 99% of the world's coral reefs. That could happen in the next 15 years. That's how serious this is. And yet, these companies have sway in Canberra and the parliaments of, especially in WA. You know, they donate to political parties. They contribute. They have ex-MPs working for them. This revolving door of ministers and politicians going to work for big corporations, or they send people from big corporations into parliament. You know, they have a lot of control. You know, I just can't believe that in 2026 this stuff's still happening.
Oh my gosh, no kidding. Well, I think you're so right about the disinformation and the misinformation. So let's make it really clear for people. We have to get involved in politics. We have to be engaged in voting. And something like, do you think it's fair to just make climate like the one issue that we vote on, and we only vote for politicians that are against new fossil fuel projects? Like that, sure, a lot of people probably talk about climate change, but we want to see politicians that have a real focus on no new fossil fuel projects. Is that kind of like, how should we be voting?
Well, we've looked at this issue too as a political party and said, okay, well, what are we going to talk about? What's our key message? And our key message is no new fossil fuel projects. That's it. There's enough fossil fuels in the ground right now to push our planet well beyond 2 degrees of warming. We've got all we need for our energy. We need to move into renewables and clean energy, not to mention for national security reasons, for sovereignty reasons. You know, the sun travels tens of millions of kilometres across space. It doesn't need to travel the extra distance of the Straits of Hormuz, does it? We have the energy we need now to live and live a happy, clean life. So our message is only vote for politicians who support no new fossil fuel projects. That's really simple. It's got a lot of cut through. We're not going to be able to stop and close down fossil fuel projects that already exist. Maybe that might happen under new policy setting, but the important thing now is it's delusional to have a clean energy strategy and also fossil fuel projects. You've got to stop fossil fuel projects and have a clean energy rollout. Of course, disinformation campaigns funded by fossil fuel industry are trying to promote more fossil fuel projects with all their bullshit, and they're trying to slow down the renewables transition by spreading lies about renewables. They're trying to divide us as communities using rage baiting and lots of techniques and pit us against each other, because when we're fighting each other, be it political or otherwise, guess what? We're not focusing on them. Okay, that's it. That's the message.
That's great.
But we've got to be really careful about who's pulling our strings here. And it's the 1%, the wealthy on the planet, who the billionaires that got Trump elected. Trump's not every day he's doing something to kill the climate.
I know.
It's to spur the climate wars and undo climate action to kill the environment. Like he's the most dangerous person on the planet.
And Pauline Hanson is tracking. She's tracking Trump vibes. Like we can't trust her. She's sure, Labor and Liberal are also not doing great for the planet. And then the rise of the third party, we're like, yay, Greens. But then One Nation is coming here claiming some radical, not the two-party system, but really she's not going to do good. We can't trust her. She's all lies. She's funded by the 1%, basically.
She's funded by the 1%. We know that. Look, she's not hiding the fact that she's cohorting around the world with billionaires and we know she's got a massive disinformation machine behind it. She denies that One Nation's paying for it, but no doubt she probably knows who is. Who knows? But, their strategy is really simple. They're taking a really genuine anger out there in the community that people do feel towards the political system.
Yeah.
And I've seen this. I've seen the votes peeling away from big parties in Australia now for the 15 years I've been in politics, in Parliament. She's taking that anger that's very genuine about people feeling abandoned by the system. And then what she's doing is she's then creating a grievance by blaming someone for their problems.
Yeah.
And it's usually immigrants, brown people. Very simple. It's a strategy that's being used all around the world. She's borrowing these strategies, by the way, from the UK and the US and other places. And then this politics of grievance is really powerful because, unfortunately, history shows that people, if you can externalise an enemy, then people will rally behind you. And that's why her vote's been going up. So she's been flooding their social media platforms with bullshit, mostly from overseas, foreign interference kind of bot troll farms. And then, she's rage baiting. She's not offering any solutions. And this is what people have to understand. I'm sure one nation would be quite happy to see just this eternal rage baiting, eternal kind of, politics of grievance and just play it, set on replay.
Yeah.
Because that's good for their politics, right?
Chaos.
A party like the Greens and other good people in Parliament, we've got policies, we've got solutions. We want to fix these problems. Now, we do blame the billionaires and the fossil fuel companies that we believe are behind these things, but we've got the solutions to fix them. That's the difference between, for example, One Nation and the Greens. They have no policy, and I don't care about policies. They're just in there for whipping up the grievance. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I feel like I know you got to run because you've got 2 weeks left to get everything done that you want to do. So thanks so much for being on with us. And I feel a little bit hopeful. I feel kind of excited about, we've debunked a few of these misinformation campaigns on just in this little chat we've had today. And I think that, people can feel really good about the fact that renewables are worth investing in, worth transitioning towards. So, a lot of these environmental policies and campaigns that we've all been like, yeah, let's get behind and do it. Stay the course. It's not, don't get caught up in the doomism that even activists and environmentalists, when we look at the real picture of the earth, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, is it even worth getting an electric vehicle? Is it even worth, converting my house to solar? It's like, yes, keep going, grow your own food, like be a part of your community, keep going the environmental course because we have to.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And everyone can make a difference in their own way by their own individual actions, whether it's, recycling more and growing their own food, as you say, Kathryn. But just my message to your followers would be, don't forget that every environmental problem and every social problem that you can think of can only really be fixed by the parliaments of the world. There are systemic issues that we're dealing with here. And so therefore they are political problems and people often don't see them as political problems. And therefore you need a political pathway. So if you want climate action, you want producers of plastic to be responsible for their products so they don't make stuff that can't be recycled or reused, you do need to vote for it, and you need to pressure decision makers to make the right decisions.
Yeah.
So you need to do both. You need to lead by your own example.
Yeah.
And your actions as an individual, plus you need to get, whether you're political and join a political party or whether you join an NGO or whatever you do, you need some kind of collective action to make politicians do the right thing. Because otherwise they'll listen to fossil fuel companies.
Yeah.
They'll listen to big corporations, the banks, whoever's donating the money to them, call it pay for play. It's a very real thing. It's institutionalized corruption, basically. Like, it's not corruption in a personal sense where you're taking a bag of money and this is Bernie Sanders says this really well. He's like, if I'm voting on something in Congress and someone gives me a brown paper bag of money to sway my vote, I'll go to jail, right? That's corruption. But if a corporation donates millions of dollars to my campaign and says to me, I don't want you to vote for this, and that's fine. He calls it legalized corruption and bribery. It's legal bribery. The political system allows for that. In fact, it's been like that since the Roman days. So state capture, crony capitalism, whatever you want to call it, we've got to clean as well. And that's the other thing. We ban political donations, get truth in
Love that.
advertising around election times. There's things we can do to really improve politics as well.
Yeah, I was trying to end on a positive note there, and you had to bring in political corruption. Get involved in politics, but watch out because politics are corrupt. So, but you gotta. That's why it's so important to know who to vote for, and yeah, keeping it really simple about just no new fossil fuels projects is a really great place to start. I think in simplifying and getting involved. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much, Pete, for your time today. I'm so excited for part 2 when we do that. And enjoy the
I'll
next
send you
2
my
weeks.
link. I'll send you the link to my final speech as well.
I would
Kathryn. I'll
love
send you
that.
the link for my valedictory will be in a couple of weeks where I'll only have 20, 30 minutes to talk about trying to wrap up, 14 years of my career. But I'm hoping that if people want to dial into it, I can send you the link.
Oh my gosh, would love. I'll definitely share that. Thank you for that. And thank you for all of your hard work and your commitment and just being a champion and a warrior really out there for all of us, because you're right. We're out here doing our individual part, but we need, like you just said, we need it at the highest level of government, some warriors, superheroes fighting for these issues, because yeah, that's where real change happens, and change happens at scale. So thank you for all that you've done for the earth and for the environment and for the oceans and for us. Thank you. I'm so grateful. Thanks, Pete.
Thank you, Kathryn, for everything you do and for being a friend and being such a legend as well. It's been a huge privilege and pleasure to work with you and everyone else who cares.
Oh, thank you, legend. And enjoy your last 2 weeks. And see you for the party after.
Yeah, I look forward to it.